First of all, a lot of gratitude and appreciation to one and all, particularly Krishna and those yogis who are here. My gratitude towards Mataji, who is 92, still has traveled all the way, taking 2 different flights early in the morning and then 3.5 hours journey by car to and then from Bangalore. We can't thank him enough actually. And all those people, Hansabai, Jashubai, Sureshbhai, who have accompanied him just out of devotion. So let's give a big hand of applause for them. Really it is extremely difficult, even at my age when I have to travel this much, I sometimes feel, so we must appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I actually took this opportunity, just I wanted to come here after a lot of, input from Krishna. And I had actually another conference in Bangalore of neurology, so I thought I can take the chance of going there and then from there I'll come here. So honestly, I am representing both at this moment. As you would understand that I am a neurologist and I have nothing to do with food and nutrition, okay? But as an inquisitive scientist, I couldn't help going into the depth of all these things. And before I come to my presentation, which is later on, I just want to add at this moment that it is time the world has to realize that calories is not the only way to feed human body. Human body can sustain on many other sources of energy. You could call it prana killing, you could call it living on light, you can call breatherism, you can call it anadia or whatever. And there are different connotations with different reasons behind that. We can look at that later on. That is number one. Number two, for some people this is by choice. Some people have done by yogic ascent, some people have done Raj Yoga and other methods, some people have done systematic chronic adaptation, some people may have access to some disciplines, some people might have automatic biotransformation that we as scientists don't understand still how a gene mutation can occur, but that's what exactly is happening. I've seen some patients. And there could be some ways how chemicals and some fruits can also transform the body. So whole process is biotransformation. And the Indian ancient texts have mentioned that there are different different systems in the body. The primary body is called Annamaya Kosh, so which is what we understand, we thrive on the calories and food, and that is Annamaya Kosh. Anna matlab food. Second is Manomaya Kosh, where you have the energy of mind and the processes of mind which make you sustain. Then comes the Jnanamaya Kosh, knowledge and the tentacles of knowledge that can sustain body, and there is another existence of human body. And the fourth, they call it the Anandamaya, the soul-filled kind of. So different ways, you can explain our human existence. So when you do biotransformation, you are just shifting from primary food and energy to the next level, maybe Manomaya or maybe Jnanamaya or maybe from knowledge to happiness or soulfulness. So this is how Indian spirituality used to explain. The people, why do fasting? Some people do just for inquisitiveness. I have extensively traveled across the world, maybe more than 65 countries I visited. I have visited a lot of people, because I go for my conferences and giving my lectures of neurology. But in the process, like this, I take all the opportunities to meet and interact with people of different ethnicity and try to understand why they want to do fasting. So it is surprising that many people do fasting just for the ethnic reasons. Some do for religious reasons, like in Jains, we belong to Jain community where we have 8 days fasting, 16 days fasting, 30-day fasting, and even 2 months fasting, and so on. So that is a religious fasting. Dr. Scott and the group in Ohio, they asked for fasting for cleansing the body and for the health purposes. So there is another purpose attached to that. And then there are people who do for spiritual elevation, so that is a spiritual fasting. So there are different reasons why people do fasting. And I'm sure you might also have some or other reason. But I believe most of us here are doing spiritual kind of cleansing process. And before I go for my presentation, which will be after some time, I will let you know how I got into this. As I mentioned, I'm a neurologist, and I was doing my work very diligently until one day, one friend of mine came and told me, Dr. Shah, there is one gentleman called Hira Ratan Manik, he wants to do 411 days fasting. So I just laughed at him, what this gentleman is telling. I thought is not in good mind. So I did not listen to him. But then he came after a few days again, Dr. Shah, would you want to do research? I said, look, I am a neurologist and I don't think I am qualified to do work on fasting and nutrition. But he said, since you are trained in USA and UK, so you have research knowledge, so basically we want your help in this. But I turned him down for one or other reason. After several attempts, when he came, ultimately I called up his wife and asked whether Dr. Shah, PG Shah his name is he alright, or he has some other physical or mental problems, why he is asking me for such things. So that was a kind of negligence and annihilation that I had at that point of time. Anyway, to cut the story short, because he was a good friend, I had to agree to do at least monitoring, and I said beyond monitoring I won't take any responsibility. So we made a research protocol and did some monitoring kind of thing, and I was the head of the research panel. Monitoring panel was headed by somebody else, and somehow that fellow could finish 411 days fasting in front of us, but he was taking boiled water during the daytime from 9 o'clock to 6 p.m. every day. Apart from that, he didn't used to take any morsel of food or whatever, even not milk or any other liquid. We studied his parameters and all that, and based on that I was ultimately asked to generate some working hypothesis which I floated on internet. You might have read. If you not, you may browse prolonged fasting. How is it possible? That was published, I think, in March 2001, and I also it came in an index journal, and thereafter the story is such that I was, absolutely busy all the way. There are thousands and thousands of people across the world who would want to write to me, meet me and all that. In that process, Jasmuin and other people from Switzerland, somebody from Austria, somebody from France, somebody from Netherlands, and so many other people came or contacted by mail, and that's how I got connected to this field. And in that, one day this Suresh Bhai and Saben and Jashu Bhai brought this proposal for Mataji. So that's how this is the background of the whole phenomenal case that you are seeing in the world. Actually, it is a tradition in India that the real yogis, or those who have ascended in the path very high, they would never come forward for any scientific procedures. They don't want them to be examined, or they don't want to be disturbed anyway. They are just, in their own way they live their life, and in general they are not amenable to scientific study. And this is the first time in the world that after this lot of perseverance from Suresh Bhai and Saben and Jashu Bhai, that I had to again get convinced that I would like to study Mataji. But this time it was a very, very advanced study, which I will show you in my presentation. If we can do projection, it would be a great, for all of you, it would be the most thrilling thing. How did we do the whole study, and what are the objectives, and how the research findings came, etc., etc. And then Defense Institute of India, Physiology and Allied Sciences, DIPAS they call it, they joined me, and in 2010 we studied him again for 15 days. Thanks to Mataji, for first time in 2003, for 10 days he was in the hospital in a stipulated condition, in a very strict environment, and he allowed lots of tests which even a normal person would not like to get done in the body. But it was his magnanimity that he allowed us to do that. And then, because our President of India then, 2010, Professor Abdul Kalam, wanted this study to be extended, so with the help of DIPAS Institute, we did another study, prolonged for 15 days. At that time, I came in the second seat. The first principal investigator was Defense Institute of Physiology and Allied Science. There's the government of India. And I became the co-investigator, and the whole study was done in a very massive scale, and that findings also I have some of them to show to you. Since the government of India has not allowed us to publish all those details of 2010 for public circulation, I would have some restriction, but I can show some of the aspects which might make you quite it will be awesome for you to know that. So all these things would really excite you. At the same time, over 17 years I have been seeing him, right? 2003 and this is 2020.
Yes, exactly.
All 17 years he has shown no signs of aging. He is the same cognitively, mentally, physically. I never saw him ill. So why, the question that comes back, why one would want to be off the food when a lot of food is available? It is not just about eating or putting something in mouth and testing food, etc., etc. But what I realized from my research, that is the food that corrupts the human body and human mind. The thoughts, the emotions, the desires, ambitions, ego, attitude, they are linked to the food. On the other hand, it is a food that is responsible for our diseases, for atherosclerosis, for cardiac disease, for malignancy and all that. And all these people whom I have studied, right from Hiratan Manik to him, and I have met Jash Mohin and some other guys from Petrol from Netherlands and so many others. So one thing is common in all of them, they are very agile, they don't show signs of aging, they are brilliant, there is a resonance emanating from them, they don't fall ill physically or mentally, and their energy level is extremely high. So this is what really makes me wonder that in my future years, after my neurology is over, when I will give full time to this particular aspect of human existence, the survival without food, and how does it help human race. It's not just that cooking food takes a lot of time and waste of energy and money. It is much beyond that. If you don't remain on food, you are actually on a much higher plane. As I mentioned initially, you are biotransforming yourself from Annamaya Kosh, the food-related existence, to either the mind-related existence, or to the Gyan, knowledge-related, or the final one, that is Anandmaya Kosh, the soul-related. So this is what is the most interesting part of the whole story. Having said that, if you ask me whether I am remaining without food, no, gentlemen, I'm extremely sorry to say that as of now, I am still eating food. I am studying this phenomena, but I can say that my food quantity is reduced, I would say, to 1/3 in last 15-17 years. So that is an advantage to me, and I still work for 14 hours a day. Okay?
So I want to ask you a very small question.
Please.
Regarding this, what you said just now.
Please.
That as I do a lot of exercise, in morning I do 2 hours exercise. So after that, how can you live without food? If you are doing hard work, just I want to know, then also you can live without food?
Yeah, I mean, these are people in front of you, so if you are in that process and if you are successful in doing that, not all people become successful. I have come across failures of people also. So those who have a mental conviction, that is the first step. Those who are lucky and those who follow the path properly, I think these are the people who get rid of all these questions, because as I mentioned, their energy doesn't come from food, their energy comes from the cosmic sources of energy. So they don't require calories to run their body. They run from, let's say, from the trees, from the sun, from the air.
It's a shocking for the scientists and the doctors like you.
It is. It is absolutely shocking, and that is what I'm going to talk. This is, for me, it is a hell of a thing to swallow, and for my colleagues who were part of my study, they were also very...
You mean to say your science is failed before this science?
Yeah, I mean, there is something beyond our current science, and we need to open our eyes. That much I can say. I cannot hypothesize or give a foolproof concept, but this is an evolving science, and we cannot neglect that. That is what I can say. Look, I am a neurologist. I am having the final degree of India. I have studied in abroad, in USA, in Houston, then I studied in UK, so you can understand that I cannot talk bullshit here. I am supposed to be very, very sensible. And when I say I am amazed, at the same time I don't say that everybody can do that. I don't want to advocate to each and every. There are lots of ifs and buts. But I have come across people who can do that, and there is a possibility, and the only way we can explain is the alternative sources of energy. Like we have, apart from electricity, we have a lot of now other sources of energy like air and heat and solar and etc. Similarly, if I give that kind of similarity, there is surely something which is optional and people can opt out. And there are certain processes which I think these yogis can tell you better, each of them, how they have, what they have gone through and how they have succeeded. But for a common man like us, and for particularly a scientist, it is extremely difficult to even accept this.
Really?
And I said no, I turned them down several times. What exactly you are trying to tell to me? I wasn't ready.
If I will not eat food for 2-3 days, I will get ill.
Absolutely. So is with most of us. But as I said, I could reduce my food intake to 1/3. And I don't say that in future I will be on zero. At this moment I don't want to proclaim anything. But I am saying that this is what I have seen, and I am not advocating that way. I am just going to put my research findings for all of you to,
So, Dr. Sir, don't you think nowadays, in the present time, the main problem of the world, especially health-wise, that we are eating a wrong food? So, I think what he is doing is a big thing, because food is the only thing which is making us ill, and we are thinking also ill. Today you see the coronavirus and all, it is all generated through food only.
Absolutely.
So what do you think, that what type of food is best for our body?
What type of?
Food. You think, because you are a neurologist, that's why I'm asking.
So as I said, neurology has nothing to do with food and calories and nutrition. So I cannot advise you. But the food which is more on the, particularly vegetarian food is the most important concept. And more of the leaves and lettuce and plants, more of the nuts, more of the oil like olive oil or coconut oil, and most of the fruits you can eat, and the raw food like cucumber and those kind of, these are the healthiest food, as all my studies of neurology and cardiology has proved, as for example Mediterranean food. These are the food which are healthiest food on earth for heart and brain. And if you remove the non-vegetarian part and you sustain on first vegetarian food and then slowly try to reduce the grains and go on more on fruits and the raw things and nuts, perhaps that is the easier way to scale down the calorie chart. But I wasn't alone in the whole project. There were 24 super specialist doctors, 32 scientists of DIPAS, which were basic scientists, physics, chemistry, biology, genetician, all those people gathered and what we studied. And then I went to meet people at America. Some of them were NASA scientists, some were others. And you'll be surprised to know that many people want to study this for several other reasons. As I said, the reasons of fastings are different, the implications of fasting are different. The food and calorie mathematics is having a parabolic curve. Initially, if you see whatever amount of calorie you eat, the body weight is according to that. But at some point, it suddenly turns. Meaning thereby, many people who seemingly look fat and obese, they don't eat that much kind of food, but still they keep on gaining. So our calorie mathematics does not explain that. Conversely, there are people who are thin and lean and eat lot of food, but they don't know how they dissipate their energy. So this curve so science has some limitation, you would agree. We are trying to explain by BMI and this and that and basal metabolic, but that also has been proved a lot of times wrong. But the implication here, as I first mentioned, that the food corrupts the body and mind. So the lesser you eat, you become more healthy, and if you don't eat at all, we have vibrant people like here. They don't age.
Sir, हमारे हिंदी में बोलते हैं ना, जैसा खावे हैं वैसा खाओ. What you eat, you are like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lesser you eat, more you live.
Absolutely.
In our Vedic, everywhere it is written very clearly.
That is one thing, but at the same time, whatever you eat, the same you become. जैसा खाते हो वैसे आप होते हो. जैसे आप इतनी non-veg और violent चीजें खाओ, तो your thoughts become aggressive. So that is one element. The another element is we were looking at the countries which are deprived of food. I mean, I don't want to, put them here on record, but there are some countries in the world, which don't have they don't produce enough food and people have starvation. And if for example human race is shifted to less and less food, probably the starvation issue and death related to starvation can be solved. But the context on which Indian government and to some extent NASA is working is something different. We are trying to look at the speed of the rocket. As you know, there is a rocket age and people want to travel to moon and also to Mars. Now these people who eat a lot of food, 2400 calories is a general diet for such people who are astronauts, and they have to carry lots of food with them, so the rocket weight actually is very high. And if we can bring them down to 800 calorie or maybe 600, you can understand the implication. The weight of the rocket would be very less and therefore the speed of the rocket would be fast. So you could reach moon maybe in 45 days instead of 90 days, or you could reach Mars a little earlier. So that is what the bigger players are looking at. And the other thing is people living in adverse situation, like the soldiers in staying in, as for example Himalayas, or they are continuously not getting ration appropriately at right time. Some of the reasons, maybe avalanche or whatever. If they are made to stay at a lower calorie, probably these casualties would be low. So there are a lot of other reasons. I am not here to describe all of them, but you can understand that this inedia or Bedarism is not about simply one person not eating or not. It is having a global implication. That is what I want to convey. And that's how Mataji is so precious. You would find people who don't eat, but you will not find a person who doesn't drink at all. At the top of it doesn't pass urine and doesn't pass stool. That hardly ever you can come across.
You don't drink even water also.
It is unbelievable, but we did it in 15 days in our control situation we kept, and we have all videos with us. So all these things are unavailable, and at the same time, at the age of 92, if somebody is running on the staircase 150, 250, kitla is staircase?
142.
140 staircase is just running up, and I have to
follow slowly.
So there are so many things.
We never heard about him before in TV.